In this panel, we will get into kind of nuts and bolts of execution, even though in PartnerOps framework, it starts with co-market, co-sell, and then incentivize. We kind of heard in the previous panel that selling is everything, and a lot of the co-sell places are becoming co-market places also, right? So we'll flip back and forth a little bit, but I have got 4 great panelists here. I'll start with Eleanor. Eleanor Thompson, she flew all the way from England just to talk to you, so thank you.
And it's her birthday.
Yeah, and I was going to say that is also her birthday. So thank you for doing that. We did an event in Silicon Valley with Eleanor. That was our first event. So it's very kind of you to come over all the way. Justin also flew over, 1 state over, 2 states over.
I walked here.
Yeah. But Justin, I've done a podcast with you. He's full of ideas, and not just that, he's executing. There's almost 20 registrations that came through just in social network, going back to your word of influencers. So I'll let every one of them introduce themselves. Vineet, he and I go back and forth. We've been talking for a while.
15 years otherwise.
Yeah. But he has a very important role at Cloudera. As you know, in future of data, there are 3 companies playing a big role, Snowflake, Databricks, and Cloudera. They have a very different way to go to market, different stack than those 2 other companies. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then Mei Zhou, I met her through online, through LinkedIn. We did a podcast together. She ran a $500 million division at Dell. So we have some Dell DNA going back and forth. But we'll have her expertise in co-sell. So with that, I'll let you introduce yourself, take about a minute, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you very much. I am Eleanor. Based in London, I run a partnerships consultancy called Branchworks. We work with companies predominantly in the data and AI space to help them grow with partners, generate more revenue through partner program, partner education. I'm also a business psychologist, so I quite often go into companies and figure out what's not working well and help them to figure out that to move into the rest of our projects. So we're a small team, a team of 5, but growing very, very quickly, partnering with great organizations such as ZINFI. So it's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin?
I'm Justin, and my background is in direct response copywriting, and so I tell people my first partner was my readers, and so I understand that the most incredible and valuable thing that anybody can create for their partners or customers or their audience is to get their attention, to have them trust you, to have them click, to have them follow you. And so engagement and trust at scale is where my expertise is now scaled to. When you take that skill set and you apply it to what I'm basically running now, I call them partner pods, alliances of ICP-aligned, multi-company alliances that go to market together. And so I help orchestrate those events. And so I apply what I understand about copywriting, direct response, and then lead generation, but now doing that across and for multiple companies that are a part of these partner pod alliances.
Awesome. Vineet?
Yeah, hi, Vineet Sharma. I'm the Global Alliances Lead for Cloudera, just building the AI ecosystem for Cloudera. Before I go there, very familiar faces here. Starting with Sugata, I've known him for over 15 years, used to live in Pleasanton. And again, my business partner and my mentor, John West here, again, from Pleasanton. We go back all the years, and Craig here, Ted here, Danny here, so many familiar faces. And Mei, who's been consulting with me together for the AI ecosystem, helping me build the AI ecosystem for the last over a year now. So in Cloudera, like Sugata said, it's a different kind of motion. There are 3 major data platforms right now: Snowflake, Databricks, and Cloudera. But very different motions, very different positioning as well. While 2 Databricks and Snowflake are cloud native, we are the only data platform. Cloudera is the only data platform which goes hybrid. Because it was born on silicon, it was started as a Hadoop platform. Many of you know Hadoop back in the day and how it evolved over the years. So I will go more in depth there, but very, very interesting space. Loving it for what I'm doing. And over to you, Mei.
Thank you, Vineet. My name is Mei Zhou. I'm the CEO of Wild Consulting Agency. So my agency specializes in large, complex solution capability in bringing partners together. So typically we focus on the enterprise and large vertical markets, and really hands-on white glove type of a solution building and sales and marketing enablement. My background is 26 years in the industry. The 22 of those, I was at Dell. Ethan Wood and we're in the same division. I focus on the OEM ecosystem, solution building and go-to-market at Dell, and identify ways to bring the different type of partners together, focus on use case and outcome-driven solution building capabilities. So so I have quite a few partners here in the room that I've worked with over the years, and I think with the market is moving, and if you look at the market that's moving into the more complex AI capability, edge, cybersecurity, cloud, it's no longer an individual company. Go-to-market is a team sport.
Yep.
So it is the partner ecosystem collaborating together, understand what each partner's value is, and how to bring the whole team together.
Yep.
So my agency serves as that matchmaker capability to bring all the partners together.
Awesome. And so in the previous panel, we had a sequential flow we went through. Here, we're going to split between mid-market and enterprise. So we'll talk about when it comes to co-market, co-sell, Incentivize, through those lenses. Everyone can talk about any of those dimensions, but that's the way, I'll kind of take so the framework perspective, that's what I'll follow based on the discussion I had. So to start with, let's start with you, Eleanor. You spend a lot of time on marketing, both on market to partners as well as market through partners, right? Mm. So building on a little bit, maybe what Jennifer said or Ted said, when you're building out an ecosystem in mid-market space, it's very noisy out there, right? It's fragmented, it's noisy. It doesn't matter whether you're 6-year-old or 66-year-old, we all have ADD now, right? We don't pay attention. And attention is the commodity marketers crave for, right? How do you cut through with this large, complex, global, local sort of a framework when you're trying to help a mid-market company build a go-to-market plan?
I think it's about not trying to copy what the bigger organizations do. Like so many people that I work with, they look at what these bigger enterprises do and they say, we want to go and do that. And it's like, well, that's not what you do. Like it's, how can you create something that is unique for the market that you work in rather than just copying what all these big enterprises do? Because quite often you don't have the resources, the budget, the reach to actually go and make these things work. So really, how can you build something that is unique to your individual market rather than just copying what the bigger players do? It happens so frequently that they go in and they go, we want to do all of this. And it's like, but you can't. Like that's not going to work for you. So actually creating something that is going to work, that you can resource rather than just over-promising and under-delivering is really, really important.
Cool, and we'll come back to that in a lot more detail, especially on market through. So Justin, you have figured out a model, and you said you would even give away the recipe book. So can you talk a little bit about, in this noisy framework where email doesn't work, I think it'll be a great way for you to introduce your overall framework. So whether I'm thinking about recruiting partners or helping the partners get end users, right? How does that mechanism apply from a co-market market perspective?
Yeah, my main way to help companies is to help multiple partners who share a common ICP that are non-competing, that when you, in the words of near-bound marketing, surround your partners. And so there was a lot of hype around what that concept is. And for the last 3 years of actually building a model that has proven to work. And so companies like Crossbeam, 360 Insights, talking with HubSpot, ran some pilot programs for them to help them orchestrate their ecosystems to drive multi-partner, and we all want the Salesforce or the Sage or HubSpot to do the marketing for us as partners, but the reality is there's just not enough bandwidth, segmentation, and internal enablement for those teams. There's just not the resources. I know the people at those companies, they're coming to me saying, hey, how can you help us orchestrate? In fact, if you want to go on HubSpot's shouldn't be sharing this now, but there's an academy program I'm launching where I walk through 2 hours of what I'm about to share with you right now in detail. And so at some point in time, in fact, follow me on LinkedIn, scan my badge, and if you do, I'll collect your email address and I'll send it to you because I'm a marketer. But the reality is that there's a couple components, and the big one that I talked about on your podcast, the big one I talked about on the podcast is something I call control the scroll. And so when I talk about channels and controlling the scroll, it's about the channel of email, it's about the channel of LinkedIn, it's about the channel of Slack or Teams, it's about the channel of SMS and WhatsApp. And so I've established multiple steps and multiple messaging strategies that on the front end, when you align HubSpot with Apollo, with like an email bounce tool and all the things that customers need to then get their message delivered and managed and all the way to and through a sale, right? You take those 5 or 7 partners and you align them in a way where each one of them has 10, 20, 30, 40,000 people on their lists, and they all start to drive to a common point of conversion. Now you've got your traffic generation solved. And then I built some tools that if you go watch the HubSpot Academy program I put together, I show how I've designed a intent discovery and segmentation process that then finds the leads that are good for Apollo, finds the people who are looking for a CRM, finds the people who are struggling, finds the disqualified people and kicks them into a different campaign, because there are 5 to 7 key data points that if you go watch that video or you want to talk about it later, if you collect them and then you build, you don't even need AI. Most marketers can't even do like regular, like basic token-based custom field marketing, let alone like prompt engineering that's going to drive any sort of reasonable response rate. I've learned that if you just first learn how to do basic marketing segmentation and data token acquisition and then build that into your custom fields and your campaigns, I get somewhere between a 17 and 22% conversion click-through rate on my stuff, somewhere near a 60% open rate on behalf of the group, because I understand and I take those pieces of data and I just build really good, simple subject lines. Hey, Justin, as a partner manager in this ecosystem, let's talk about blank, and you capture those things. You just build these things formulaic, like the same way. In fact, actually, I borrowed this formula from the earlier days of agile development, a user story. As a blank, trying to do blank, I need help with blank. And so if you just collect those blanks and you just create copy and content around that, you're going to cut through the noise. And so they're just formulas I've discovered around the orchestration of multi-partners, the collection of the data, and then when you build the messaging, and I just happen to love events because people will share with you really important things about where they are in the world and what they're trying to solve for. And so then I just activate them on WhatsApp and SMS and email and HubSpot. I love HubSpot. I mean, side note, if anybody's like in a like SMB to mid-market range and they're like, $3,000-$4,000 a month could be a lot to spend on HubSpot, I found ways to do a lot of that stuff as a much smaller company than me, and getting almost all the benefits from a basic like $200 spend on HubSpot. And you can do all this multi-channel stuff with them on that.
So let's go back to alliances, right? Because from a co-marketing perspective, when we dial back, alliance was always the biggest co-marketing example is Intel Inside, right? And then powered by. So when you go back to an alliance framework, you are trying to move very complex organizations, alignment, motion, objectives, figuring out. And one context I want to set based on both what Eleanor and Justin said is that there's this whole notion of 7-layer cake or 7-layer solution that the customer is buying, whether it's 2 layers or 3 layers or 19 layers. The reality is, in most cases, we're selling a value meal to the customer. And as a product, I need to figure out whether I'm the Coke or the burger or the bun or where do I fit in, right? And then going back to the discussion we're having with Mary Catherine Wilson is that I need to approach a partner from an ICP perspective as a stack, right? So Alliance was kind of the beginning of co-market, right? So if you dial back where Alliance was when you and I were chatting in Pleasanton and where it is now in Cloudera, can you frame that a little bit? Yeah,
so coming all the way back from HP, I used to work for HP for a long time, and we used to have like close to 100,000 resellers. Fast forward 15, 20 years, things have changed totally. The whole partner program back then and now It's totally changed. It's a different world altogether. And if you don't adapt, then you are probably, if you are just following the same old methods, they won't work anymore. So now what we are doing is, I'm giving the examples of now for Cloudera, for example. We are taking more like an outside-in approach, really looking at the customers for AI projects. What are they looking for? And for each AI project, there are at least 7 different partners who are touching the deal. So how do we make sure that all the 7 different partners, different touch points, they are all aligned and we are delivering value? Because majority, and you can see the stats, I think 70, 80% of the AI projects are failing. One of the reasons is this is not coordinated among the partner. The partner ecosystem is not figured out. Companies who don't figure out, they fail. But companies, when all the pieces are together, then you deliver success to the partner. So it's really a kind of an outside-in approach, and that's the mindset you have to use. The second piece of this puzzle is also you have to, it's like when you're building a solution, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. There are different pieces. Those pieces, if they are not fitting together, then there is a mismatch, there is a gap. And that's another thing. We are kind of making sure all those integrations, all those connections, all those are tested out before we kind of implement at the customer. Those kind of things are working. So it's a very new way of thinking, very different way of outside-in approach rather than inside-out, which I used to do for years at HP.
And we'll come back to that a little bit. So let's go back to Dell and evolution of Dell. If any organization co-marketed and co-sell was Dell, whether it's with Intel, whether it's bundled with other providers. So before we get into co-sell part of the equation, which we'll spend a lot of time on, how has co-marketing changed or changing at the moment if you think about these large brands?
Well, I'll speak from my own experience because at Dell, I focus on solution capability building and go-to-market. It is very different from a product marketing. Product marketing is when you design a product and then you figure out how to get that message to the market. When you are building solution capability, you come from the customer point of view first. You figure out what is it that customers are looking for, what solution customer is really, trying to capture to solve their biggest business problem. And to Vineet's point, it's from an outside-in perspective versus inside-out perspective. And so the co-marketing is really focused on the voice of the customer and what are the solution capabilities that we're creating as an easy button for the customer. So instead of customer trying to search up and down, left and right to find a solution that meets their requirement, and customer in the biggest bank system is different than the customers are looking for solution in the government side and different than healthcare. So you really have to get down to that individual customer base and say, what's the solution they're looking for and how do we design that solution to fit their needs and to reduce the complexity or bring the solution together by simplify and designed in advance and present the solution to the customer that's already turnkey. And that is so critical. And so that type of a co-marketing is a very different co-marketing as a traditional Dell, HP and Lenovo kind of a product marketing. So that customer voice experience side of things is the key.
So I'll come back to a mid-market. I'll give you a specific use case. Let's say, going back to a solution stack, we'll simplify. Let's say it's a $30,000 ACV product, right? And relatively standalone deployed. You're trying to build a motion. It's not necessarily a horizontal market that you throw out and you got millions of customers. So it's relatively vertical. You got to reach out, find alignment. If you're trying to build, you understand your ICP, then you're trying to build a partner motion, right? A resell motion. Let's keep aside affiliates or other motions. How do you go about co-market into that space? Like, how do you recruit? How do you drive demand gen? What are the tactics can you follow?
To new partners.
To new partners.
like Antonio said, you have to figure out what your ideal partner profile looks like, which is super, super important. So many people I speak to don't understand what a good partner looks like, or they say to me, a good partner is someone who, and I'm like, you can't search for someone who. Like, if you can't put it into LinkedIn, if you can't put it into Sales Navigator, i.e. the size of company, which industry they're in, and then ask them questions about their capabilities and their alignment and how they want to work with you, then it's not a type of partner that you can then find. So defining your ideal partner profile, super, super important. As Antonio said, very much aligned with your ICP. And then messaging to them, really figuring out what that messaging looks like. And it's not a sales motion. You're not reaching out to these prospective partners like you're trying to sell to them. You're reaching out to them with wanting to build a relationship, wanting to build a collaboration. Like, what does that look like? What might they be interested in? You know, if you can find out what they're interested in, it might be that they want to generate more revenue. Great. It might be, like Antonio said, around, you know, increasing their services, or they might want resale commission. Like, finding out what's actually important to these partners is really, really important as well. Otherwise, you're pitching completely the wrong thing. You could be reaching out to these partners and saying, like, we'll give you 20% commission on our product if you partner with us and resell our product. I can tell you now, most partners will not be interested in that. Like, it's a nice to have. The commission is nice to have, but it's actually not why they partner. Mm-hmm. So figuring out why people partner and then incorporating that in your outreach, in your messaging is super important as well. Like, it's all in discovery. It's all in fact finding and making sure that you are outreaching with the right kind of messaging rather than just trying to pitch straight to these partners. Like, there doesn't need to be a massive, like 4, 5, 6 step marketing outreach to these prospective partners. It really doesn't need to look like your sales motion does. It needs to look personal. It needs to look like you understand their business. You understand what it is to partner. You want to build a true collaboration, a relationship with them. That might look like picking up the phone. It might look like a personalized LinkedIn outreach. It more often than not looks like an introduction from someone that's already within their network, be it an existing partner or even a customer. One of the things that I always recommend my clients do is go and speak to their customers about who they would trust. So go and speak to customers and say, do you work with any resellers already? We are expanding our partner program. We'd really love to work with some people that you know and trust. Who do you work with already? Can you make an introduction for us? Most partners that you want in your partner ecosystem are going to be already in your customer base, and then you start bringing them into your partner ecosystem, and that's a whole other question.
So we'll take that. So Justin, let's go back to the HubSpot example. Average, I don't know how many of you know, but their CEO, Brian, talks openly that average transaction is $12,000. It's a classic SMB mid-market sales motion. Of course, they built it over the years. But in mid-market, I know there's a lot of companies here. In mid-market, you're possibly using HubSpot, right? So if you kind of double-click what Eleanor said, you're trying to build a partner recruitment motion using HubSpot and Justin's technique. What does it look like?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this the whole time while Eleanor was speaking, and that you've got 3 elements to convert anybody into anything. And so it's just like you've got the data, you've got the message that's going to be sent, and then you've got the system of record that you're going to manage these things in. And so whether you're marketing to customers, you need to know who they are, what their pain points are. If you can't search for it in LinkedIn, you can't plug it in. You can't write a message that's going to be read, responded to, delivered, that's going to move down funnel. And so the mechanics of marketing, whether you're targeting SMB, or I would even say anybody on anything, it's just like the better you understand your IPP, your ICP, or if you're working in a co-marketing or a co-selling motion, like the adjacent products and services that their partners are using, which you can get from Crossbeam and doing collaboration and capturing that second party, I guess it's called second party data. And so like targeting and understanding who you're trying to reach for what, where do you get your data source, write your messaging, put it into a follow-up sequence. Some of you here are here today because I wrote you an email using some personalized data that I captured during my registration flow and got people to show up for an event. And so for a $12,000 program, oftentimes that's, or even $30,000, $40,000 ACV, like you're oftentimes going to rely even on regular product-led growth kind of leads into that as well. And so there's a ascension ladder, and you might sign up and get them into a trial. And so like capturing partners is kind of the same way as like, what are their issues? What are their pain points? This is a very common one that I've used and I've heard other people talk about is like, go on your ask your customers. When I was a partner manager at a small SMB company, one of the things I did is I ran a little survey during the onboarding process to say, how did you hear about us? What other products or services are essential to you and your business? And they'll mention solutions partners, they'll mention influencers, they'll mention app partners. Guess what I did? I'd go on LinkedIn and make a little Loom video. Hi, this is Justin, one of our common customers. Just said blankety blank. Let's talk. Let's go put something together. Because in the end, you don't want to reach everybody. You want to reach like what the voice of the customer, as you were saying, are speaking about in all the back channel areas in which people are saying who's the best for this and who's the best for that. And so the best way to get that data is from your customers, and then from the inside out. Your IPP kind of gets defined by how you're showing up in the market and what people are perceiving your product's value is in the collection of services that they're bundling together with your products and potential partners' products. And so for me, outreach was kind of just a weekly review of what was going on inside. And this is for like an SMB sized, $5,000 a year ACV, but it plugged into HubSpot. And then there was 17 other products that were mentioned that were also then became partners that helped make the whole ecosystem of the sales motion bigger and better. So for me, it was just a manual lookup, and then I would just use those data points in my messaging to then reach out to those partners and then find out great ICP match, but then also can they become a performing partner? And that's a whole other conversation.
And we'll come back to that. We'll come back to the next phase. So I do want to both of you talked about a lot of online tactics, right? I want to go back to the old Alliance days, which were trade shows, events, collecting business cards, and getting lucky. So talk to, in today's Alliance world, does online play a role? Or I saw Mei traveling through the cities, connecting to a whole bunch of people, trying to build her network. Like, how does Alliance work today from a co-market? How do you recruit them today?
The basic simple rule, people do business with people they like and trust. It still applies. That's where we go to all the events and all that. So online is very important, and I'm being in the AI and data and AI-driven world. AI and automation, very important. Online, very important. But end of the day, it really has to be personal, that personal connection. We travel a lot, really to make that connection and have that still that traditional way of selling still exists. And that's very important for a company like us. So I give you one example. Yesterday I was having a call. So our head of sales invited me for the all hands call. So one of the things I started with the opening line was to my sales team, guys, don't sell functions and features anymore. It won't work in the AI space. I'm talking about the AI. It won't work. And everybody was looking at me, what is he talking about? I said, you really have to understand the customer use cases, customer problems, solve customer problems, don't sell functions and features. And that resonated with people. People who are and then I showed them the data. Here comes the online part. We had some data and analytics on the people who were successful or who are the best performers in our company. They are running the whole thing by use cases. They have defined the use cases early in the sales cycle. They know what are the customer pain points and who to bring to the dance floor, which kind of partners, whether it's a GSI partner, whether it's a technology partner, whether it's a whatever partner. Some of them were so clever in picking out a small boutique company over the likes of Accenture and big ones. And in many cases, we do work with Fred, to your point, we do work with AWS for example. In many cases, we have got more success with aligning with AWS for the deals, but in some cases, going with Dell. So those kind of, again, you have to make choices, but really understand customer and then merging the two, the traditional world with the online and all the AI and automation and intelligence that comes with that.
So I want to start moving into co-sell, but within the context of co-market. One of the podcasts that I did with you, you talked about alignment, understanding segmentation, ICP, figuring out whether they're buying just the fries or the value meal, the complexity of how the solution stack go together, but then align the teams, right?
Yes.
Can you talk to a little bit about how important it is? Sell through is not as co-sell through. So how does the organizational structure change? In a large organization, you're selling $300, $400, $500,000 solutions, maybe multi-year ACVs, right? You go in at a POC and it grows. Can you tell us a little bit about the organizational alignment?
Yeah. So, when you look at selling into a large, complex industry like government, as an example, probably one of the more complex selling. You have to figure out. It's like almost like creating a Michelin star restaurant experience. You have to understand where are your all key ingredients come from, where the all key player come from that serves the different parts of making that dinner experience the most unforgettable experience you had. That's the wow factor you have to bring to the table. And that part of that alignment is also going to elevate you from a co-marketing and co-selling aspect because it elevate you up and cut you above the competition and above the noise. Because, in today's world, you go to any conferences, everyone's saying, we sell AI. In the government space, everyone talks about zero trust. You go to the conferences, the buzzwords is at every single booth. So how do you cut the noise? How do you cut and really elevate yourself? So when you are in front of the Navy Admiral, you get straight to the point to say, this is how we bring you the value of helping you to achieve the mission that you need to achieve under, the certain period of time. And that underneath that, it's all the homework you have to do up front of all the team alignment. And team alignment is not easy. It takes time. It takes time to understand the complexity of the problem you're solving and who are the expertise in different parts of that solution building capability, not only just from a technology side. On the government side, it's also procurement, it's contract. It's all the different pieces you have to put in order to make that execution happen. And that is, it's the art, it's the science. And I would say, back in the Dell days, and Ethan knows about this, the leadership team wants us to say, what's your recipe? We need to cookie cutter your recipe and then so we can scale. But the bigger the customer you're working with, the more complex the customer you're working with, there's no cookie cutter. There is no recipe. It is you're designing for that customer. So you can't just go buy cookies at Costco. You have to build it yourself. You have to understand, where do I get the best ingredients from, Jennifer, from MC, and from this. So I'm creating you the one and only unique solution that you are not going to get from anybody else. And that is the co-marketing magic sauce. And there's no easy button. It's hard work behind the scene.
Yeah.
One of the reason we have started these sort of gathering, as I mentioned to you, to really kind of build this function called PartnerOps. And I went back to the analogy of DevOps. One of the major thing, we'll talk about AI, one of the major thing that's happening today, and it has actually happened over the last 2 years, a good developer is 10 times more productive today because of AI, right? A good writer is 10 times productive today.
Yeah.
So what's happening at a C level, at an organizational level, you're looking at your P&L. If you're a software company or a hardware company, 20 to 25 points of that went to engineering. The opportunity there is the engineering as a percent of cost shrinks because you don't need 100 engineers or 1,000 engineers, right? What does need to happen, I think, as a group, we need to convince our C level, ecosystem is now becoming engineering. Because you have to design, you have to visualize, you have to design, and you have to deploy an organization structure, and math is everywhere, right? Because it's all about data. And I don't think the way the C-level, when I look at the McKinsey report or Goldman Sachs, or when you look at the investor paradigm, is obsessed about cost savings, right? The organizations like Microsoft and others, AWS and others, that are progressing, they're shifting the P&L towards more marketing, more sales, but data-driven, not put another headcount out there because Northeast doesn't have enough coverage, right? That's the old way. Yeah. So I think we have a huge opportunity. So within that context, I want to come back to Eleanor. If you're starting up today at a mid-market company, 100%, 150% shop, right? You have a huge advantage because you can take on the large guys because they're not moving fast enough on go-to-market, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you see the opportunity and tactics was a mid-market? Because if I shift 15% of my engineering to marketing and sales, I suddenly go from 1 headcount to 9 headcounts, right? How do I play that out in mid-market?
I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying at the start in that you, as mid-market, you don't have to do what the enterprise players do. You actually have a real advantage in that you're a mid-market company because you can be more personal, you can be more agile, you can move quicker, especially when it comes to partnerships. You know, so many partners that I speak to within my clients, I work predominantly with mid-market companies, and sometimes they want to place big bets. They're like, we want to go after like these few big partners over here, but you know, they already partner with our much bigger competitors. And I don't think it's going to be that difficult to get them in because most of the time they've partnered with the bigger competitor who can't offer them the right support, the right resources. They barely ever speak to them. They don't have personal relationships with them. And I'm like, you have the opportunity to do that as a mid-market company. You get to offer them everything that they don't currently get with those bigger companies. You can do the co-marketing, you can do the webinars, you can do the co-sponsored events with them, you can build personal relationships, you can give them ad hoc enablement, like all of these things that partners are crying out for that are more personal, that are built on collaboration and strong relationships. And I think that is a real mid-market advantage. And now with the introduction of AI, like you were talking about, these people can do more with their time as well. So not only are they, you know, able to add more personalization, they can also increase the amount that they can do as individuals because these bigger companies just aren't either moving quick enough or building personal relationships.
You're agreeing, you're disagreeing?
No, I'm just shaking my head in agreement. I think large and complex is a liability in today's market, and small, fast, distributed, and empowered is what's gonna win. I mean, if we're talking about 10x developers, 10x marketers, 10x partner managers, 10x partner marketers, I mean, the things that I'm doing right now, I mean, full disclosure, in my little guidebook description, I'm a team of one, performing literally 10x. I'm able to generate thousands of leads per month for my group of partners doing all the work optimized because, and not to name names, but I'm working with companies that are like, they work with enterprise
like ZINFI.
companies. Like ZINFI, but what I was about to say was actually not a very kind thing, so you're in the other bucket of kindness. Yeah, ZINFI's great, and that's another thing. And what I'm talking about here is, you know, when I'm working with companies that have an approval process, a legal process, a privacy policy process, 3 people need to review the email. It goes, the messaging goes from being personal and feeling like it's a human talking to them to a committee of editors who've now brought it down to the least common denominator, not to, you know, make this word, that word, and by the time you get done with that process, the person who should be empowered to go to market on behalf of you, your customers, your partners, the group, like when that goes through that larger, complex, seemingly mid-market and up size companies, the liability is that you don't get your message to market at any time soon, whether it's to partners, through partners, with partners, or to or with customers, kind of just pick your audience. It's just the process is the same. Large is a liability, and small, nimble, and fast and empowered. I'm just seeing like how fast I can move with a small group of really committed, mid-sized partners, companies who want to like come together and dominate like and I will call it the attention sphere of their ICP on LinkedIn, through the influencers, through their own blogs, through all their channels available. If you can coalesce all of that and then put someone in charge who has like the empowerment to work at speed without all of those encumbrances, like that is, I'm seeing that that's why I'm sitting in this chair right now, because I'm doing those things, and I'm seeing it happen in real time right now. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not even using AI yet. And like once the model that I'm working on is kind of finalized by the end of this summer, and then I put AI and personalized content and reports at scale using all the data on behalf of all the partners and intent stuff, I see the future as like one-person teams are just gonna, like three-person, maybe a designer even, maybe not even, like they're just gonna like outperform, and we're gonna see that like September, October time period.
And we kind of see that, most of our customers, hundreds that we have, are in large enterprise. We have 27 Fortune 100 companies, but we ourselves is a 150-person company, so we're like lower end of the mid-market. The tactics that we're deploying, how fast we can execute, there is nowhere the enterprises are, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go back to you, Vineet. Now, you're in the age of AI. You're trying to mobilize an army to figure out a solution stack, which has 19 layers on it. And you have these nimble players coming from the side.
Yeah.
How do you mobilize that ecosystem? How do you orchestrate that?
Yeah. Before I go there, I just want to give you one real example. We implemented our solution for an AI-based solution. This was generative AI solution to improve the code quality. This particular bank, without naming it, had around, last year they had around 2,000 developers, people working on application modernization and maintaining all kinds of codes and code development and all of that. So the Gen AI project was really to improve the code quality and make them more productive. And sure, during the process, we worked with 7 layers. So Dell was the main partner. Then NVIDIA, we used NVIDIA GPUs. Then we had Mistral language, again, different vector databases and all that. So the 7 layers, 7 different partners, but coordinated on the bank side, they coordinated very well. Project was finished on time within 1 year, but huge investment. 2,000 people, but the end result was they overachieved in fact. The target was 35%. Productivity gains, they achieved 45%. And they were amazed with the data quality, with the code quality they were getting out of generative AI. The flip side of that, with all the results, and everybody was happy, congratulating. We, in fact, published the case study and everything. And we signed, in fact, 3 more banks based on that success. But the next thing we know, that bank fired 400 people. Out of that 2,000, now is 1,600. I was feeling like a little bit about. But at the same time, they are hiring for new positions like AI strategist or prompt engineers, positions that never existed before. So that's the real evolution that's happening in the customer side. So I'm seeing a lot of that. And coming back to your question on the different layers of these ecosystem partners working together, and many of the projects which are AI, generative AI projects, which are successful today, are really, if you crystallize, if you really define your use cases clearly, these are the problems, that's how I'm going to solve. And these are the ecosystem partners who are going to play a role here. You have a very clear idea which ecosystem player plays where, then they are successful.
So I'm going to go beyond enterprise, which is GovEd, talking about speed. And without getting into a political debate here, government in every country is inefficient compared to enterprise, right? Estonia, which I think we have heard of, is number 1 in e-governance, but it's a small country compared to the US, right? California is 19 times larger than Estonia. But Estonia they have like 2 forms in Estonia that are manual, like home mortgage or something. And I learned that from the AI event that we did in Silicon Valley, right? So when you look at the change that's happening in GovEd, keeping aside the political noise that we hear from outside, good or bad, what do you see is happening, what the opportunities are in GovEd looking forward in this age of AI, in co-market, co-sell wise?
Well, I think the biggest focus in terms of what AI can bring to the government side is the productivity gain or cost reduction. But in order to do that, you have to understand the process. So I'll go back to the early stories that Elon Musk wrote about building his factory at Tesla. He put in all the robotic system in his factory, and then 6 months later, he had to take them all apart. The reason for that was because they didn't understand the process to begin with. So therefore, robotic automation didn't work. So for the government process, it's the same story. Before you automate, you have to understand the process first, then you go automate. But I think there's an enormous amount of opportunity where AI can support the government process to automate those manual, steps and, manual people process. But at the end of the day, the government business is highly complex because it is not business. There's a lot more impact to the government, to the citizen services, to the fairness of the policies and national security. There's a lot more implications involved. So you can't just say, let's try it. If it doesn't work, we'll bring it back. By then, you are already impacting people's life. So I think it is something that we definitely are looking to help to build the AI process and automation. But before we do that, we have to design it with people first. We have to design it with what is the outcome that we need to achieve, and then design the AI capability and process in that. So it is not one to Z, and it takes iteration. We're still learning AI right now. So this is, we're all on this journey together, and government, in some ways, needs to be considered with very careful consideration because of the security and complication and many other things involved. So it's a complex problem to solve. But it requires the partners all coming together to solve this big problem. And so it is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for all of us.
So let's go to the almost last topic, because I'm looking at time here. Let's talk about money, incentives. So going back to what Antonio mentioned, which was like this drip enablement, going back to Jay McBain's framework of point of value, rewarding partners where they actually add value, because they may not carry the entire sale through, right? Yep. Somebody's maybe generating leads, like what Jennifer was talking about, and somebody may be actually just providing services, right? So when you think about mid-market companies, 30, 40, 50K, has the incentive programs changed, or are they roughly the same they used to be?
I don't think they have changed that much, though I do think that companies are now more aware that the old kind of referral commission, for example, might not be incentivizing the partner that much. So it's actually like, how do you then incentivize the partner? How do you find out what incentivizes them? Their referral commission, if you have a referral partner, the referral commission is probably not going to the sellers. It's going to the business, and quite often if you're a vendor in a mid-market, you are very late paying that referral fee because the process is not quite there yet. Therefore, you've got to find out what actually incentivizes your partners and what actually incentivizes the people that are on the ground that are going to go and pitch your offering and support you to sell it. So I do think there is when it's changed, it's more of an understanding now that it's not just a straight, here's 10% commission if you refer as a lead. There is a bigger process to that that can really support you to increase revenue through your partners. And it's the same with other types of partnership as well, with resale discount. That might be a little bit more straightforward. But I think in the mid-market, they have the opportunity to make it very, very clear as to what those incentives are. I've worked in bigger enterprises before, and I've worked with partners that have worked with bigger enterprises and then have come to maybe a mid-market client of mine and I asked them about their commission structure and about their incentives with the bigger competitor. And they jokingly said, I think we get an extra 2% if we register our deal after 5 p.m. on a Wednesday. And that is how complex the incentive program had become, that for them coming to a mid-market company and us saying, no, here is our commission structure, here is the incentives that we offer. It's very, very clear. Here's the amount, here's when we're going to pay it out, and here's what we reward you on. And if you want us to do an additional incentive program for your salespeople, then we can do that too. So I think the mid-market can have the opportunity to make it super straightforward, and then add on this personalization and these nuances that actually incentivize the individuals to go out and sell that offering as well.
So I want to go in between. If they go sell, it's clear, you pay them, whether as an affiliate or there is a commission, whatever, right? Let's go to Justin. In this new world of digital marketing, right? How do you reward partner performance? What are your metrics? Because you have to send out 79 WhatsApp messages and 39. What are the KPIs? How do you drive the right behavior?
Yeah. So my viewpoint is pretty narrow and specific. The areas that I'm seeing success in, and I'm only speak to what I'm actually doing and seeing, and that is SMB, mid-market size companies, picking not just your 20% of top performing, but like your 5, if you have 100 partners, pick your top 5 who are in surrounding that ICP, create this marketing alliance that I've been talking about. And then nothing is more incentivizing for a partner to continue to participate in co-marketing than delivering them an engaged, on-point, targeted, hot lead who's interested and ready to talk to them about their product or service. Nothing makes salespeople more happy than like, here's your lead, it's booked for you, here's the 7 points of data that like they filled out, and now you have very clear intelligence on what other tools they're using, what pain points they're experiencing in the market, why they're even wanting to talk to you. And so through the events system that I've built, that these different multi-partners plug into, everybody promotes, we then add that data layer that's usually not available, maybe a little bit of data in this company, a little bit of data from that company, and then by bringing everybody's marketing focus together to one single point of conversion through both third-party tools like Apollo, you can enrich that data, and then you can pass along to that partner. This is their intent, this is their tech stack, they're telling you this information. And then also here for the salesperson, here's the LinkedIn information that you can just go right out to see their profile, click, say hello. If you want to go one step further and break some rules on LinkedIn, put some automation in place through tools like Expandy. And now if you're building sales and marketing alliance through PartnerOps, which we haven't really brought much up, like none of this happens without very clean, clear, aligned PartnerOps systems that bring all the companies into one single source of truth and then segment out those hot leads to those particular sellers. I can tell you nothing makes the people that I work with in the partner marketing alliances happier than a solid lead with a little, I call them tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 leads. A tier 1 lead that expressed intent to look at a product or service that matches with their ICP. And just side note, I'm excited by this because I'm really an operator. I'm a techie operator, marketer guy who's just super grassroots. And like we just finished our first pilot of every partner in the pod uploads their target 100 account lists. And so then when anybody registers across the network of partners using this tool that we've created, and all the partners have the tool installed, guess who gets a notification? Someone registered, and you can trace it back to partner A or partner B or partner C, but partner D is now the beneficiary through the Adam Smith invisible hand of just co-marketing. You don't need a partner manager to go in and look through spreadsheets and then see some sort of export record. You just have a system of record that acts on behalf of the co-marketing alliance. Everybody in the co-marketing alliance uploads their top 100 accounts, and then as people just market these co-marketing events, ebooks, webinars, events, name it. You just have all these right MarTech partner ops triggers in place, and then salespeople are like, Shazam, like that happened yesterday. So everyone's happy. So nothing makes Justin, partners happier.
You all know how Justin's brain works, right?
Yeah.
You all know.
So I'm just like
I've been amazed what's in there.
Yeah.
So, but thank you. Yeah. But you can see the complexity, right? It is very, very. That's why ecosystem, as I said, it's becoming an engineering effort versus anything else. But let's go to Vineet. How do you incentivize alliance partner? You just sign up and pay their tier program. You pay per event. Like, how does it look like?
No, it's becoming very complex because, like, especially in any AI ecosystem deals, there are multiple partners. and their incentive motions are very different as well. So one thing I teach our salespeople upfront, whenever they are starting on starting from the deal, any opportunity stage, think of the partner, but think about what's in it for them. How will they get paid? How will they get incented? So I make it very upfront, and that's part of the process when they are registering a deal, when they are going through the deal review with us. We just make sure they understand if they are bringing in any small boutique partner or a GSI partner, or what's in it for the other side. Again, every partner is driven by some different metric.
So sorry to interrupt, but are your then incentive programs more custom built based on who you're going with, or you have a tier-based program? How do you do that in alliances?
Yeah, so we had that tier-based program till now. For the AI piece especially, we don't follow that program. So we have more like a incentive-based program depending on the partner type, because it's an evolving partner type.
Yeah.
It's not the same anymore.
Makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah.
So Mei, going back to same questions, maybe both large enterprises like the Dells of the world, they're very large enterprises, right? And then also on the GovEd side, what do you see happening on the evolution of incentives?
It's more than just money. So I think everybody here in this room agrees. For the frontline sales makers, yes, there has to be money involved. What's in it for them? How do you help them to get to their quota attainment faster? But at the leadership level, at the company level, it's about the customer acquisition.
Yeah.
It's about the ability to open up a new market and a new segment and get their company branding and visibility. So it really depends on who you are talking to and what their role at that company is, and they are incentivized differently. So as going back to the government example that we talked about earlier, to implement AI in a government environment, one of the really big project that I helped at Dell, and took a village and lots of partners involved, was the city of Amarillo, where we implement the first digital assistant for the city, because that city of Amarillo, you'll be surprised, but there's 40 plus languages spoken in that community, and city just does not have the resource or capability to handle all those communities. And so what we did was we helped to pull different partners together to enable a digital assistant solution to be able to converse in multiple languages with the citizens. But incentivize the community is different, because we have to involve the community to get the buy-in from the community and say, this AI solution is actually going to help you. And that voice of a community is super important, get their buy-in. So they're incentivized differently than the city government officers who are looking at the ways to, put their city on the map and say, we want to put our city as as a progressive city that focus on the future. And whereas the individual Dell sellers and partner sellers are coming in, whether it's helping to for them in terms of a revenue attainment for their quota, but on the much bigger scale in terms of Dell technology and other partnerships, it's to elevate this use case. And this is the very first human assistant project that we're putting on the map. So as you can see, there's so many different stakeholders involved in this project, and every person involved is motivated by different reasons.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that and then be able to align them to what is win for them and what is a collective win together.
Awesome. Thank you very much for being here.